Brady's not reading it.
You're on.
Okay. The Lafayette Township Board of Trustees and Fire District meeting, organizational meeting of Friday, January, it is Friday, right?
Yeah.
January 2nd, 2026, we'll just call it to order. The notice requirements of section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code and the implementing rules adopted by the board pursuant thereto were complied with for the meeting. Roll call,
Paroli here.
Bella here.
Demansky here.
Will you please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll open up nominations for chairman of the board.
Justin, you want to be chairman? Nominate you? Nominating Justin for chairman.
I agree.
You want a second, Steve? Second.
Second, yeah.
Okay, Sherry, you
I'm
have to
sorry,
have
can't hear you.
I'll vote.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
just do a vote real
let's
quick.
do that.
oh, Burley? No,
Yes.
that you, just Hilaire
Yes.
and Demansky.
Yes.
Thank you, Sherry. I will take nominations for vice chair.
Steve?
I nominate Pilar Carey.
Carrie, are you okay with that?
Yep.
I will second the nomination of trustee Villar as the vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so just historically, the board's always selected the chair and vice chair by motion. This year, we're gonna document those designations by resolution because they establish the board's leadership structure for the entire year. It's a simple way to create clarity in the public record and set deliberate tone for what our board structure is gonna be. So the first two resolutions that I would propose are resolutions 2026-01, establishing the chair, trustee Paroli, and the vice chair for 2026-02 in trustee Villar. Do I have a second for those resolutions?
I'll second.
All right, so in order to save paper, we did not print all of the resolutions in advance because there's gonna probably be some modifications and stuff. So we'll take a quick second here, I'll print these out.
You did one motion for both?
Well, we're ultimately gonna do the record with a resolution. So resolution 2026-01 is the chair.
Yeah.
Trustee Paroli, trustee, I motioned, Demansky seconded it.
No, but one motion for both resolutions.
Yeah,
Okay. No, but I just want to know who motioned it.
and with them being resolutions, just to clean it up, we should do a roll call
Yeah.
vote on both. So, trustee Demansky, are you okay with both of those?
Yes.
Trustee Villar?
Yep.
And trustee Paroli, yes. Okay, so let's get these. And I don't mind running to the printer to grab those, but we have a volunteer.
Is it the?
Yeah, just on the front desk there. There should be both of those two resolutions. The next item on the agenda is our public notice policy. Did you guys both get a chance to review that as well?
about department liaisons.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, good catch. So yeah, let's do liaison appointments. You know, this is something that can be done by a simple motion. We've typically kind of lumped them together, but, you know, we don't necessarily need to do that based on kind of what goes together. So I just want to hear your guys' thoughts if you guys have any input on liaison positions. Again, these aren't authoritative over any
No, yeah.
department, they're simply, you know, to enhance communication
Yeah.
between the departments and the board between meetings.
So I don't mind taking the service department, the ceremony and the community ones. There was one on the list.
The community.
There's one on the list called community.
Probably economic development.
Well,
Yeah.
we've typically done, you have fire, police, and EMA, which tend to go together. Cemetery and service, because our service director is in the past acted as the sexton on the cemetery. And then there's, zoning, economic development, and then like recreation or parks. And then we've sometimes done stuff with administration, sometimes not, sometimes it's just fallen to kind of the chair for any type of administrative type stuff. So, you know, are you guys of the thinking that we should keep those lumped together? Because I know you kind of mentioned service, cemetery, and then
Yeah,
economic
keeping them together
development.
makes sense, doesn't it? As a,
I mean, there's arguments for both, so I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that way just because it's the way that it's been done in the past.
have you got a preference, Steve? Which is the department you would?
Which I would want, I would probably, just because of my familiarity with it, I would probably take like fire and police. Well, because I have a little bit of experience in it, you know, I'm familiar.
Okay, so let's see here. And you said you would be okay with service? So that would be like service and cemetery together, for trustee Villar. Fire, police, and EMA for trustee Demonski. And then, zoning, economic development, recreation, will be trustee Paroli, and then, administration will leave just kind of under the guidance of the chair, and in the absence of the chair, the vice chair. So I'll make the motion to, assign, 2026 liaison appointments. Fire, police, and EMA for trustee Demonski, service and cemetery for trustee Villar, and I'll take zoning, economic development, and recreation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
All opposed? Alright. Now, we will move to the public body notice. So, let's see. So we have a resolution 2026-03, a resolution adopting a public notice and open meetings compliance policy for the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees. Whereas the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees is a public body subject to the requirements of the Ohio Revised Code, Section 12122, commonly known as the Open Meetings Act, and whereas Ohio law requires public bodies to establish reasonable methods whereby any person may determine the time and place of regularly scheduled meetings and the time and place and purpose of special meetings, and the board desires to adopt a clear, concise policy describing how notice of meetings will be provided to the public and news media in compliance with Ohio law without unnecessary duplication of statutory language. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Lafayette Township Trustees, Medina County, Ohio, that Section 1, compliance with the open meetings law, the board affirms its commitment to full compliance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 12122, as amended, and all meetings of the board shall be conducted in accordance with that statute. Reasonable methods of public notice, the board establishes the following reasonable methods by which any person may determine the time and place of its meetings. Pending notice of meetings at the Lafayette Township Safety Services Building, which will be the electronic sign outside. Posting meeting information on the official Lafayette Township website when available, and maintaining meeting schedules and notices through the Office of the Fiscal Officer during regular business hours. Regular meetings, notice of regular meetings shall be provided through adoption of an annual meeting schedule by resolution of the board. Changes to the regular meeting schedule shall be noticed in accordance with Ohio law. Special and emergency meetings, notice of special meetings and emergency meetings shall be provided in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 12122, including advance notice of news media that have properly requested such notification and prompt notice in the event of an emergency requiring immediate official action. Responsibility for notice. The fiscal officer or a designee acting under the fiscal officer's authority shall be responsible for carrying out the administrative duties necessary to provide meeting notices consistent with this resolution and Ohio law. The resolution is intended to implement Ohio law and does not create any substantive or procedural rights beyond those provided by statute, and the resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. I would make the motion to approve resolution 2026-03.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Tomasky, yes.
Goff, yes.
Paroli, yes.
So Justin, can I clarify, no notice in the newspaper, correct?
Correct.
Got it.
Mimics the recent changes to
I figured.
Ohio law.
Just wanna make sure I understood it.
And we will read the, like the main purpose of each resolution as we go through these, and they'll all obviously be available. But we won't go through every single one unless there's a request to.
Okay.
Alright. So the next one is the 2026 regular meeting schedule. You know, in conversation with fiscal officer Ward, I would like to suggest that in order to not have such a large gap between approvals of bills and then also to kind of sync up the approval of payroll with our pay schedule, I would recommend we go to bi-weekly meetings every other Tuesday, starting next Tuesday, which would be January 6th, and then meet every 2 weeks. So that'll give the fiscal officer time to process payroll, prepare the reports to us, and get our review and approval before we release those funds. Any objection to that meeting schedule?
Would it make a big difference if we kept them on? I like the twice a month, that's good. I'd like to keep it on Mondays if we could, unless it's gonna cause a problem.
Well, Sherry?
It,
Monday night makes it a little bit more difficult for you to be able to
Difficult
get
on you then?
payroll together, correct?
it would also cause a problem with Chippewa Lake's meeting for me.
On,
The Monday, it's the second Tuesday, or second Monday of the month. So it depends on what Monday
Oh, I
we're
see what you
switching
mean.
to, or how we're doing it at bi-weekly.
well,
And
It
what-
may affect the Monday meeting at Chippewa Lake.
And what time? Like the second meeting, does it have to be in the evening since you're just really doing it for warrants?
We could do it in the morning.
I would prefer to keep the meetings to 7 PM, 6:30 or 7, either one, but like to the evening meetings. It's just more difficult for most of the public to be able to attend. I mean, I know sometimes we have to have, single topic or special meetings, but since we're gonna be discussing regular business, things that just come up, it's not gonna be, special meetings, we put out a notice of exactly what's gonna be discussed, whereas the regular meetings, it's kind of anything goes, plus it's the opportunity for the public to come speak, so, I would stick to evenings.
Sherry, how does it affect you? Evenings
Well,
and
not if
morning?
you're gonna have to micromanage payroll, because there's no way I can get it done, plus all the reports, everything for a Monday meeting, on top of payroll, on top of everything else I have to do for a meeting. So Tuesdays, that's why we decided on Tuesday, plus I have other meetings on Mondays.
Right. So does the Tuesday evening work for you?
Yeah, Tuesdays are fine.
Yeah. Just pick your regular time then.
Okay, and I guess, we've done both, 6:30 and 7 over the years. I kind of feel like if we're meeting every 2 weeks, they hopefully won't be as long. So maybe starting a little bit later makes it easier for people to get to, but I'm flexible on that. We kind of, is there,
I'm good.
I
Either
don't
way.
mind, yes, well,
So
7 o'clock gives
6:30.
people a chance to have their dinner at home, doesn't
Right.
it? And then
that was my
come
thought
to the
process
meeting.
behind it, so, alright, so let's see. We've got, Resolution 2026-04, I'll make the motion to approve the 2026 regular meeting schedule. The board shall hold its regular meetings for the calendar year of 2026 on the following dates. I won't read every single one, but it's every other Tuesday, January 6th, bi-weekly. So for March and September, there will actually be 3 meetings. Chief, because I know we kind of talked about, obviously we won't have departmental reports at every single one of the meetings. My thought process would be you have February 3rd, March 3rd, probably August 4th. Those are the only ones that happen in the first couple of days of the month. So I would say with the exception of February, March, and what did I say, August, well, September 1st too. So those 4 months, the first meeting will not include the departmental reports. You know, any meeting that's in the first 5 days. We'll give the department heads, instead of asking chief for, service or those guys to have the report, because they can't close
Yeah.
out the report until the end of the month in some cases. So we'll do 1 meeting a month that the departmental reports do. It'll be the first meeting of the month as long as it falls on or after the 5th.
Okay.
Make sense?
Then you want the reports to, it's gonna be later in the month, you want the reports to reflect the previous month's.
Stick with the calendar month,
Okay.
I would think.
Right.
What do you guys think?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're saying on months having 3 meetings, I would just still stick with the first and the third instead of having 3 meetings in a month unless you have to.
Well,
'Cause there are 2 weeks
we're
is
doing
fine.
it this way for payroll. We still pay
Oh, for payroll.
Yes.
reasons, okay.
It may wind up being a very short meeting, depending on what other business comes up. And the meetings that don't have the departmental reports, like I wanna say we did that in 24. Anyway, there have been years where we've done multiple months or multiple meetings in a month. And, the meetings where the department heads give their reports tend to be the longer meetings. But then, the second ones are more just for keeping up with things that come up throughout the month so that we keep momentum instead of things potentially sitting. That's all. So do I have a second on that resolution? Roll call vote?
Tomaski, yes.
Oh, yes, and you said your name then.
Corolla, yes.
Who seconded that?
Carrie did, yes. And I've got these all typed up as well. The next resolution will be Resolution 2026-05, which would be the rules of procedure. Did you guys both get a chance to review those? Any questions or comments? So then I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-05, a resolution adopting rules of procedure to promote efficient, transparent, and orderly meetings. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Tomaski, yes.
Oh, yes.
Corolla, yes. All right, next item on the agenda is public comment policy. I know, even before the election, you guys had both, expressed questions and concerns over that. And I definitely understand that, but the township does currently have a public comment policy in place that was adopted in December of 2024, and that policy remains in effect. Public comment's a very important part of local government. It's also an area where, reasonable people can have some disagreements on what's being done. I guess my opinion would be, we give it a couple of meetings, as is, to see kind of how it functions and flows, especially with a more regular meeting schedule. And then if anybody wants to make any changes or review it, that we do that at a future meeting with a little bit more substantial conversation than maybe we would have today, not knowing kind of how it flows. Are you guys both okay with
I'm
that?
okay with it.
Okay. All right, so then the next set of items on the agenda are a financial controls package. And I just want to provide a little bit of context for what I'm trying to, what I'd like to see us do going forward. It's a group of related resolutions that establish a financial controls framework for the township. It's not something that we've done in the past, at least not in written form. And these resolutions are not about correcting past actions or questioning anyone's integrity, but they're about creating a clear and shared expectations for how we're gonna move forward. Good financial controls don't restrict people, they protect them, and that's the whole idea here, is to just kind of put something together that's establishes exactly what we're doing moving forward. The first resolution is 2026-06, payment authorization and approval process. Did you guys both get a chance to review those?
Yep.
Any questions? Sherry, had you had a chance to review those as well?
I haven't reviewed any of these resolutions, quite honestly.
Okay.
So-
Well, I know with the new board just taking office yesterday, it kind of created, you know, a difficulty getting those out. I'll go through. I think these are important, and they're not super long, so I think it's good that we kind of go through these. If everybody's okay with it, I'll kind of skip some of the. Well, yeah, let's not. The financial, or the resolution establishing a payment authorization and approval framework for the expenditure of Lafayette Township funds. Whereas the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees is responsible for appropriation, authorization, and oversight of township expenditures in accordance with Ohio law. And where the fiscal officer serves as the township's chief fiscal and accounting officer and is responsible for maintaining accurate financial records and processing payments authorized by the board. And the board desires to clearly articulate its expectations regarding the authorization, approval, and disbursement of township funds to promote transparency, internal controls, and compliance with applicable law. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Lafayette Township Trustees, Medina County, Ohio, that general rule prior to board authorization, except as otherwise expressly provided by law or resolution of the board, no township funds shall be expended unless the expenditure has been authorized by action of the Board of Trustees and is supported by a lawful appropriation. The role of the fiscal officer shall receive and review invoices, claims, and requests for payment for accuracy, mathematical correctness, and proper documentation, verify that sufficient appropriations exist prior to payment, and process payments only after board authorization except as otherwise permitted by law. Maintain complete and accurate records of all township expenditures, present expenditures to the board in a clear and organized manner for approval. Nothing in this resolution shall be construed as granting independent spending authority to the fiscal officer. I think that outline bullet point is pretty much exactly what you're currently doing with the way that you present the payments to us in the form. I mean, is there anything?
The only thing I could say is when it comes to, like, you guys have tripped me up many times with approving things without even coming to me first to see if the money was even there.
Agreed.
Then the stuff was purchased, let's say the fire siren. I mean, nobody even asked if we even had the money for it. Next thing you know, we're spending $36,000. I'm like, well, that's great, because you don't have $36,000.
And
So that has to be fixed before, I mean, I don't cut any checks anyway that's not approved.
Right.
But until you look at the appropriation reports and see what they actually say with what you have, you cannot approve stuff to be bought. If I'm not at a meeting and I don't find out about it 2 or 3 days later, and I'm just like,
Yep.
you've done ordered it, it's, you know, payment's now expected, and I don't have the money. So that has to be fixed too.
Yes, and those, we're gonna address those throughout this, so I appreciate that concern, and that's exactly what we're trying to address with all of these.
Okay.
So, method of payment, authorized payment may be made by check, warrant, or approved electronic funds transfer, ACH, EFT, provided that such payments are authorized by the board in advance and processed in accordance with any ACH, EFT policy adopted by the board. Routine and reoccurring obligations, the board may authorize routine and recurring expenditures, including but not limited to utilities, payroll, insurance premiums, and contractual obligations by resolution, blanket certificate, or other lawful action, provided such authorization is clearly documented and supported by appropriations. So I think that in part addresses, you know, your concerns that you brought up. Emergency or time-sensitive expenditures. Any expenditure asserted to be necessary due to an emergency or time-sensitive circumstance shall be presented to the board for authorization as soon as practicable. No emergency or time-sensitive expenditure authority is granted by this resolution unless and until expressly authorized by separate action of the board. Any payment made pursuant to a lawful prior authorization shall be presented to the board for acknowledgement and inclusion in the official minutes and financial records, which again is why we're doing the bi-weekly meetings. And the resolution shall be read in harmony with and shall govern, unless expressly stated otherwise, any policy or resolution addressing payment processing, electronic funds transfers, or fiscal controls adopted by the board. and the resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. Any questions or discussion?
I got a question, like, so, is this, are we still with the limits, like the 3,000 and under, like, purchases, like emergency expenditures or fixing broken fire apparatus or a broken garage door, that kind of stuff, it's, that,
There's,
or am I
There's-
gonna have to
you're-
find or
you're
call
ki-
one of you guys?
you're kinda jumping the gun, but we'll get to, that's not addressed in this
Oh,
piece
alright.
of it, but we've got, again, the idea is to keep the resolutions kind of as narrowly focused as practicable instead of, you know, in the past, we've had some resolutions that cover 40 different items, so we're trying to break these up. We'll go through and we'll get to it, cause if you look, well, you might not have the
I haven't
agenda in
seen
front of you. We have emergency expenditures coming up and then, an adjustment to the current policy, so.
Office supplies would probably be under that one bullet, like reoccurring.
Right.
Okay.
And that's where blanket certificates can come in.
Okay.
And again, Sherry, feel free to jump in, because obviously there are certain, expenditures that can be authorized like that, your recurring regular bills, so that it's not like you need.
We have probably,
Or-
10 or 15 contracted services that are already
Correct.
set.
And those can all be done through, you know, if we have a set contract, there's a purchase order that's opened up at the beginning of the year for that vendor.
Which is the way I like to do it, like how it was done in the past is opening up super blanket certificates for the whole year for one thing, and then you tied it up into one purchase order. I'd rather tie it into, like what Brian said, if he's having fire safety services and he knows he's gonna spend around 20 grand, open it for them, not just as a contracted service. Same, you know, I could do a blanket for like office supplies, even though we get 90% of it through WB Mason, but, you know, stuff like that. I mean, opening up super blankets for everything under the sun is insane. That's not even a good financial way to do anything, so.
But I think, and if I'm hearing the concerns correct, and they're valid, is that, you know, none of these are being put in place to slow the process down, it's just to make sure that we have the
Yeah.
proper documentation in place, and there is a way to do that, to make sure that they are approved in advance, that we have everything budgeted for, appropriated for, and that we're not scrambling to make adjustments on the back end. It just brings it to a more upfront, transparent process.
Well, with Brian, it'll be easier because him and I are on the same page now, where him and I have all of our line items exact. He's just gonna, his system throws out a different line item, but as long as he follows the UAN line item. So I tried to mimic his as far as what he has in his system, and then I told him, I said, every time we have a meeting, I'll produce a new appropriation status for him so he can see where he lands in every line item, so he knows what he has left. So we don't have to do all those supplementals like we were doing.
Right, we can catch those in advance and make the adjustments ahead of time versus on the back end. Alright, so I did make the motion on that one. Do I have a second?
I second.
Roll call?
Kaminsky, yes.
Yes.
Roll, yes.
Carrie, I can barely hear you when you speak. You're gonna have to
I'm losing my
enunciate.
voice at the moment.
Oh, okay.
You can move the mic, yeah.
I'll eat the mic.
That's okay. I get it. A lot of that stuff going around.
So the next, resolution is resolution 2026-07, designating depositories. What we are doing here is, designating for record, that all township funds, township and fire district funds will be deposited with either Huntington Bank, Westfield Bank, or the Ohio Treasurer's Office Star Ohio accounts. Statutory, section 1 is designation of depositories. The following financial institutions are designated as depositories for Lafayette Township funds: Huntington Bank, Westfield Bank, and Ohio Treasurer's Office Star Ohio. Section 2, statutory warrant order to pay signature requirements. In accordance with ORC 50711B1, no money belonging to the township shall be paid out except upon order, including warrants/checks signed by at least 2 township trustees and countersigned by the fiscal officer. Bank signature cards and operational authority. The board authorizes the township fiscal officer to work with designated depositories to establish or update bank signature cards and account access consistent with this resolution in Ohio law. Any bank authorized signer status shall not be interpreted to reduce or alter the statutory requirement in section 2 that disbursement requires signatures of at least 2 trustees, and countersignment of the fiscal officer. Electronic funds transfers, nothing in this resolution authorizes payment by electronic funds transfer in lieu of a warrant/order requirement. Any ETF or EFT direct deposit payment shall be made only pursuant to a separate board resolution adopted in accordance with ORC 507-11B2 and ORC 937E as applicable. And this resolution governs depositories and execution mechanics and shall be read in harmony with the board's payment authorization approval framework and applicable law, and the resolution shall take effect immediately. I would make the motion to approve. Roll call.
Kaminsky, yes.
Yes.
Justin, can you help me out with
Yep.
the new signage for the bank, especially Huntington, because if we can't pass or spend any money on any warrants until these guys are on the signature pages.
Yep.
I'm just not gonna have a whole lot of time between now and.
Nope, that's fine. I can absolutely help you with that. I will get a hold of Huntington right away. Sorry, Steve, you seconded that one or did Carrie? Did you second that one?
Yes.
Alright, next up we have Resolution 2026-08, the ACH EFT policy. This is just formalizing the fact that we are authorizing, in order to pay bills by ACH, we need to have something on file, basically authorizing the fiscal officer to do that. I don't know that there's a resolution standing currently that's done that. I know that there have been motions that have been made, there have been discussions, we've approved them in the past, but this puts a little bit more formality to the authorization. So electronic payment method may be used for the following categories, only when previously authorized by the board. So we authorize the payments, but she can pay payroll and payroll withholdings, employer contributions and benefits, utility services, insurance premiums, debt service obligations like the credit card, because obviously the credit card, they automatically pay, and contractual obligations approved by the board. Internal controls and separations of duties, the township shall maintain internal controls over electronic payments that included a minimum separation of duties between authorization, processing, and record keeping, secure access controls for electronic banking systems, which Sherry handles, the fiscal officer, written documentation supporting each electronic payment, procedures to prevent unilateral initiation and release of payments by a single individual to the extent permitted by the banking systems. And then for each electronic payment, the fiscal officer shall maintain documentation sufficient to demonstrate the underlying board authorization, the payee and purpose of the payment, the amount and date of the payment in compliance with applicable law and policy. All things that are on the warrant and the electronic payment advice that she currently provides. So sounds more complicated, but it's all stuff that's currently being documented, but just protects the approval process. Any questions? Alright, so I'd make the motion to approve resolution 2026-08.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Kaminsky, yes.
Yes.
Paroli, yes. Alright, next is claims and documentation. Resolution 2026-09. A resolution is establishing minimum documentation standards for claims, invoices, and requests for payment. No claim or invoice or request for payment shall be presented to the board for approval unless it is supported by documentation sufficient to demonstrate the identity of the payee, the purpose of the expenditure, the authority for the expenditure, the accuracy of the amount claimed, and compliance with applicable appropriation and board action. Minimum documentation standards: at a minimum, each claim or invoice shall include, as applicable, a vendor invoice, bill, or statement identifying the vendor date and amount due, a description of goods delivered and services rendered, reference to the applicable contract, purchase order, resolution, or board approval authorizing the expenditure, evidence of receipt of goods or completion of services where practicable, mathematical verification of the amount due, and any additional documentation required by law, contract, or board policy. Prior to presentation to the board, the fiscal officer shall review each claim or invoice to verify the claim is mathematically correct, the claim is supported by sufficient documentation, the expenditure is within an existing appropriation, and the claim appears consistent with prior board authorization. Nothing in this section shall be construed as granting the fiscal officer authority to approve or deny expenditures. The fiscal officer's role is to review certification, not authorization. Any claim or invoice that lacks sufficient documentation may be returned for completion prior to board consideration, or presented to the board with a notation identifying the deficiency, and the board retains sole discretion to approve, defer, or reject any claim. Claims and invoices shall be presented to the board in a clear and organized fashion, sufficient to allow trustees to understand what is being paid, why it is being paid, and under what authority it is being paid. Past practices, verbal assurances, or informal understandings shall not, standing alone, constitute sufficient authority for payment. Each claim must be supported by current documentation and lawful authorization. All claims, invoices, and supporting documentation shall be retained in accordance with the Township's record retention schedule and applicable law. And this resolution shall be read in harmony with the board's payment authorization framework, depository and warrant controls, and ACH EFT policies, and shall govern documentation requirements unless expressly stated otherwise. And then again, the resolution shall take effect immediately. I would make the motion to approve Resolution 2026-09.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Tomansky, yes.
Yes.
Corolla, yes. And the next one is emergency expenditures. Since Chief had brought it up, it's worth, I think this one's probably worth reading in a little bit more. Sorry. Okay, so whereas the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees is responsible for the authorization and oversight of township expenditures and has adopted resolutions establishing a payment authorization and approval framework, depository and warrant controls, ACH EFT authorization, and claims and documentation standards. And whereas the board recognizes that rare and unforeseen circumstances may arise between regular meetings that require immediate action to protect life, safety, or essential public services, and whereas the board desires to provide a narrowly tailored mechanism to address true emergencies without creating standing discretionary spending authority or undermining established financial controls, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Lafayette Township, Medina County, Ohio, that definition of an emergency. For purpose of this resolution, an emergency means a sudden, unforeseen occurrence that A, presents an immediate threat to life, health, safety, or essential public services, and B, requires action before the next regular or lawfully convened special meeting of the board, and cannot reasonably be deferred without significant risk of harm. Financial inconvenience, routine operational needs, vendor preferences, or scheduling delays do not constitute an emergency. Limited authority to address emergencies. In the event of a qualifying emergency, as defined in Section 1, limited expenditures may be incurred solely to the extent necessary to address the emergency condition, subject to the requirements of this resolution. This authority exists only for the duration of the emergency and only to prevent or mitigate immediate harm. Required consultation. To the extent practicable under the circumstances, at least one township trustee shall be consulted prior to incurring any emergency expenditure. Failure to consult shall not invalidate an otherwise lawful emergency expenditure where immediate action was required, but the circumstances shall be documented. Documentation of emergency expenditures. Each emergency expenditure shall be supported by contemporaneous documentation identifying the nature of the emergency, why immediate action was required, the goods and services obtained, the amount expended, and the date and method of payment. Such documentation shall be maintained by the fiscal officer and presented to the board. Mandatory board ratification. All emergency expenditures made pursuant to this resolution shall be presented to the board for ratification at the next regular meeting or at a special meeting convened for that purpose. Ratification shall occur by motion or resolution and shall be reflected in the official minutes. Failure to ratify does not retroactively create liability for individuals acting in good faith, but may result in corrective action or policy review. No standing or dollar-based authority. This resolution does not establish a standing dollar limit for discretionary spending, does not authorize routine or recurring expenditures, and does not supersede the board's payment authorization framework or claims documentation standards. All non-emergency expenditures remain subject to prior board authorization. Relationship to other financial controls. This resolution shall be read in harmony with and expressly subordinate to all other financial control resolutions adopted by the board. Nothing herein shall be construed to expand or diminish the statutory duties of the board or the fiscal officer under Ohio law. Transparency and review. The board may review and use this emergency framework at any time and may amend, suspend, or repeal this resolution if it determines that it is being used inconsistently with its intent, and the resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. Questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Haven't we, in the past, didn't we have a $3,000 limit on that?
There was a $3,000 limit on a purchase, and there was a $10,000 limit on anything that applied to vehicles. What this does is, it does remove that,
That's
but it does increase the documentation requirements. And I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but I mean, arbitrarily say that any emergency that's over $3,000 all of a sudden needs to be handled differently. If it's truly an emergency, that's the power that again, there's going to be board consultation. There's gonna be a department head decision. There's gonna be significant documentation requirements that justify that. And it does outline, a corrective course of action for us to do. So, again, it does loosen things a little bit, but at the same time increase documentation controls. I don't think anybody here wants to unnecessarily impede the conduct of business. We've elected, or we've hired people to administer the business of the township. I feel comfortable trusting chief that just because the emergency's $3,200 doesn't necessarily mean it's not a valid emergency or a valid expenditure. And with proper documentation.
So, I don't have to get approval for every single thing even paper, or, just basic.
Well, those things
Sure.
you're going to have standing approval for
Right.
in the budget process.
Right.
So it's something that's never, if something comes up that's never been discussed,
Right.
or,
No, I get, but general day-to-day business, still needs to get conducted, and do I have to get a hold of one of you guys every single time we buy, even the
give,
most remote?
give me an example.
Def fluid, or we gotta go to AutoZone because we gotta get windshield washer fluid, or we gotta.
So those are operating supplies that
Right.
are approved and we've opened.
Right,
So yes, if we've not set a budget, appropriated money, or approved operating
so
supplies,
as long as
then
there's
no,
an appropriated
you can't.
budget,
Correct.
so as long as the appropriation, we've appropriated it, then we could spend within our.
Correct. None of these are drafted
Right.
to shrink your authority to do things. It's to define the authority of who holds what and who's responsible for documenting what
Right.
is ultimately what all of these go
Right.
together for, which I think is the underlying reason for taking out hard caps. It's I don't know that it was ever used that way. So this isn't about correcting things that were done in the past, but I can see how there was some interpretation out there where it's well, as long as any expenditure is under 3,000,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be reviewed, and we want to get away from that even being something that's considered. And again, it's not that I think any of us think that that's what's been being done, but the way that the language was drafted in the past, it kind of looks like well, as long as it's a small dollar amount, we don't care about it. And it's handling of public funds. Every penny needs to be accounted for and documented, one way or another. So this is just to help tighten that piece of it up.
No, we already do that. And you guys you haven't seen the invoice yet, but Justin has. I sign date and
Mhm.
print my name and paid or not paid and then it's submitted. So I've got copies of every invoice we ever purchase. Anything we ever purchase I've got a PDF copy, and I send a physical copy to Sherry. So.
Well, and that's why, what Sherry was mentioning earlier too, about where when funds are appropriated and, when she issues the warrants or, the payment advice, the documentation, it's right on there that shows exactly that. Here's the fund, you know what I mean, like, so while it sounds like there's a lot of things, you know, being added, they're just really being restated, because they are things that are being done. You know, you list the PO or the blanket, you know, when something's being done, right, and invoice is being paid, you have, you know, a PO isn't purchase order isn't opened without board authorization.
Correct, but at the same time, I mean, this is how I make it at everywhere I work. Really, I mean, especially if it's an exorbitant amount of money that you're gonna be spending, you know, a purchase order is essentially supposed to be ordered first, not a blanket, so
Right.
that, you know, the whole line item is one big blanket. You know, if you're having something done for like fire safety services, all of a sudden you need a PO for $3,000. Just come to me, cause that, I mean, that's what the auditor looks at, to make sure purchase orders were approved prior to the purchase. You know, I'll have blankets open for like office supplies and stuff like that, that's fine. But anything that's like a higher cost, that's not a daily transaction, like a fire, like a garage door, at least let me know so I can get a purchase order open, cause you're gonna use, you know, Magic Door Company, call me so I can get the purchase order open.
Right.
You know, instead of having a blanket, because if you tie everything into the blanket, then not everything, you know, it just ties it up the wrong way, and that's really not good that's not good budgeting. That's
Right.
just
Makes it harder to
making it
see.
easier on the person that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and in those purchases, there's always time to do that as well, like there's.
Right, and if it's emergency, that's, I
those are
mean, that's
big
what they have a
those are
vendor
always big
purchase order for,
purchases.
so that's fine, you know, but, I mean, don't call me on Sunday morning and tell me you need a purchase order, get the stupid thing fixed and I'll work on it Monday, you know, but just, that is more of an internal control than telling, you know, I mean, as far as that $3,000 thing, because you kept saying appropriations, and sometimes I don't think everybody understands what an appropriation really is at the end of the day. So up to 3,000, 10,000, doesn't matter, if that isn't appropriated anywhere, then you're gonna go into a supplemental appropriation at that point anyway. So it will always be there, but if you appropriated 10,000 for contracted services and you're up to 9,000, all of a sudden your garage door breaks and it's 5,000,
Right.
well, now you have to go to the county and increase your appropriations, unless you supplement it from something else. But I hate doing that, because that just takes away from a problem and kicks it down the road that appropriation's gonna be overextended for the thing that you need when that comes up,
Right.
you know? I mean, it's fine, you know, we'll work together, it's all new, everybody's new, you know, me and Brian are working pretty good together, so we have good control on what that is.
So I would make the motion to approve, resolution 2026-10, establishing narrow condition-based framework for emergency expenditures and preserving board oversight.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Kamansky, yes.
Well, yes.
Corolla, yes. So the next one is appropriation modifications, resolution 2026-11. Just as spending requires board approval, this resolution clarifies that adjustments to appropriations are also made by board action and documented policy, or documented openly. Again, going with the theme of meeting every 2 weeks, if we are doing our job as a board in monitoring the budget and what's being spent, we should be able to take action in advance when appropriations need to either be increased or, you know, reassigned, so that Sherry doesn't have to juggle stuff around and come to us to correct the record after the fact. So that's what this resolution ultimately addresses. So, section 1, board authority over appropriation modification. All modifications to township appropriations, including transfers or adjustments within the same fund, shall be made only by action of the Board of Trustees, whether by motion or resolution in accordance with Ohio law. The role of the fiscal officer, nothing in this resolution shall be construed to limit the fiscal officer's statutory duties to monitor appropriations and expenditures, advise the board of anticipated shortfalls or adjustments, prepare proposed appropriation modifications for board consideration, or report financial activity to the board. The fiscal officer shall not independently modify appropriations absent board action. Any prior policy, resolution, or practice that may be interpreted to permit administrative modifications or appropriations without prior board action is hereby superseded to the extent of any inconsistency with this resolution. This clarification is adopted for governance consistency and does not imply that prior actions were improper or unlawful, and the resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. But this does mean that we have to take a more proactive role in paying attention to the budget so that we aren't impeding Sherry's ability to function. So again, this is more of a requirement on us to do our job so that Sherry can do hers. So I would make the motion to approve resolution 2026-11.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call?
Tomansky, yes?
Bilal, yes.
Roll yes. And then the last item that I have is repealing prior emergency expenditure authorization resolution 2026-12. This is the final resolution in the package that cleans up prior emergency authorizations that are no longer needed because of the one we just passed, ensuring consistency with everything that we've done so far. So let me go in here real quick. So whereas the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees has historically adopted certain resolutions granting standing authority for emergency or interim expenditures between regular meetings, including resolutions establishing dollar-based thresholds, and whereas the board has now adopted a comprehensive financial control framework, including resolutions governing payment authorization, depositories and warrant requirements, electronic funds transfers, claims and documentation standards, and a limited condition-based emergency expenditure framework. And whereas the board finds that the continued existence of prior standing emergency expending authorizations is unnecessary and could create confusion regarding the governing standards of the township expenditures, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Lafayette Township, Medina County, Ohio, that Section 1, repeal of prior emergency expenditure resolutions. Any prior resolutions or portion thereof that authorizes standing or dollar-based emergency, interim, or discretionary expenditure authority between regular meetings of the board, including but not limited to resolutions authorizing expenditures of specified dollar thresholds, is hereby repealed effective immediately. Governing authority. Emergency expenditures shall hereafter be governed exclusively by the board's payment authorization framework, the board's claims and invoice documentation standards, and the limited emergency expenditure framework adopted by the board. This resolution is adopted as a matter of governance clarity and does not constitute a finding or implication that any prior action taken pursuant to repealed resolutions was improper or unlawful, and the resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. I would make the motion to approve resolution 2026-12.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Tomansky, yes?
Bilal, yes.
Parole, yes. Alright, so that's all of what we had under financial controls for that. So now we will get into the personnel and compensation. And just because I'm sure the question will come up, we do have separate resolutions that are typically standing for the fire district and for the township. So in the interest of expediency, unless somebody has an issue, I would recommend that, obviously the chair and vice chair resolutions don't necessarily need to duplicate, but the public notice policy, the regular meeting schedule, pretty much everything else that we've done up till this point, and probably the holiday schedule when we get to it, those will need to be duplicated. I would recommend that the language is identical to what we have passed on the township side. If everybody's okay, we can just prepare those for the next regular meeting and approve them at that point.
Yep.
Add FD on the end.
Correct. Yep. And then, like I said, the chair, vice chair, and then we're gonna get into a couple, like zoning commission appointment, things that are township specific won't need to be duplicated to the fire district side, but the general financial controls, because obviously we keep a separate set of books for the fire district, and the meeting schedule and notice policy should be the same as well. Alright, so the next resolution that we have is one that has previously been adopted just as part of you know, a larger policy, and that is the elected official compensation. It just outlines that we are authorizing for 2026 that the elected officials will be paid by the statutory limitations that are set in place, and that we will use a monthly salary calculation for those disbursements. All right, so then I would make the motion to approve resolution 2026 -13.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call.
Tomansky, yes.
Bilal, yes.
Paroli, yes. Alright, next on the list is, zoning commission appointments. Again, this is another one that, you know, we could do simple motion like we've done in the past, but I do think, you know, because it's a standalone authorization in a 5-year term, I know you guys have had a chance, I hope, to look over some of the applicants. What we've done in the past, and I don't know, Karen, if you wanna to speak on this, you're more than welcome to, you don't have to. What we've done in the past is, we've had our zoning department, zoning inspector, zoning secretary, chairs of both boards, sometimes even the vice chairs, involved in the interview process, bring applicants in. You know, the last couple of years, we've been fortunate enough to have alternates on both boards, which has been a great way for them to be able to get some exposure to what's being done, and then also find out, you know, kind of how they approach things. The zoning commission, Joe Praisler's term has expired, and he is decided
yeah,
that probably
he
not
doesn't-
another 5 years.
He does not want to go ahead and sign up for another 5-year position, but he would still like to be involved. And so in talking with Nick Kittle, who's the current, or was the current chair for 2025, he'd like to see Joe move to a 1-year alternate position. Lee Wienerman, who was our alternate, moved to take up Joe's open 5-year position. And then we would need to go through those lists of people who had applied and interview them for a second alternate position.
So, I mean, I wanted to kind of gauge your guys', I know it's kind of a lot with the transition to the beginning of a new term and a new year, what your guys' thoughts were on potentially making an appointment. It would be for a 5-year term, so it would be commencing January 1st of this year through December 31st of 2030. You know, as Karen mentioned, I think, you know, appointing Lee, he's been a fantastic member of, you know, contributing as an alternate. And then we can take some time over the next couple months, you know, to kind of interview the remaining applicants and, you know, do appointments for the alternate seats, because there will then be, I mean, really as
There's
many as
one
we
on the
want, but-
zoning commission and one on the BZA also.
Well, there'll be 2 now on the zoning commission, right? Well, I mean,
No,
if
just one,
if
'cause
we
if-
reappoint Joe.
Yeah,
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 but there would be, technically there are 2 unfilled
yes,
until we make the appointment. But
yes.
yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on, are you comfortable doing a zoning
Yeah.
commission
Yes.
appointment? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I would make the motion to appoint Lee Weinerman to the full 5-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring December 31st, 2030, unless earlier resigned, removed, or otherwise vacated in accordance with law. And this would be Resolution 2026-14, appointing a member to the Lafayette Township Zoning Commission for a full 5-year term. I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Steve was louder than you. All right.
Understand what you say for
Roll
voice.
call vote?
Tomansky, yes.
Bilal, yes.
Before we do the one for, I mean, it's similar situation for Board of
Well,
Zoning Appeals.
What happened to Joe Praisler moving him?
We're gonna address the
Alternates.
alternates in the coming,
Got
you know,
it,
we've
okay.
got,
I mean, he'll still be attending the meeting.
oh, well, absolutely, they're open to the
Okay.
public, I mean, Joe's, and I don't wanna say yes or no, but I think it's fair to give, trustees Bilar and Demonski an opportunity to review all the applicants and decide who they want as
Right,
well.
and also how about getting to know the people who are already on the
Yeah,
board and who've
100%.
already, you know, come to the meetings and
Yep.
been involved and given their, you know, input, that would be beneficial too.
Agree 100%.
All right,
So, do you wanna kinda give a rundown on
the
the
BZA?
BZA situation?
Okay, yeah,
Not situation, but like,
well, what's going on, so, Robert Fertile, we've already,
Correct.
you guys have already, assigned him to replace, David Rubensaw, who resigned his term, so he's going to finish out David's term. We just have never sworn him in. I mean,
we didn't,
no,
okay,
no,
but
no,
we'll get to that
because
at the next
the
meeting.
one meeting was there and I didn't have the oath, and then
Okay.
the next meeting, we didn't have a trustee. So he's on the board. The other one would be to take, Kevin Pyatt, who has been like the second alternate, to move him up to first alternate. And again, he's been very instrumental on the BZA board, has excellent questions, would, you know, highly, suggest coming to a BZA meeting. And again, then we would need a second alternate for the BZA. So those would be the two positions.
Well,
So-
and then the expiring term for December 31st,
I don't know who that
2025 was Bill Lister.
Oh, Bill Lister, yes, he would like to continue, yes.
So that would
I'm
be the
sorry.
consideration for the board right now,
Yes.
is, you know, ultimately, Bill has served on the board, I wanna say, at least one term, I think he's done at least 5 years on the BZA. And then there's Kevin Pyatt, who has, been an outstanding alternate, he's sat several times, you know,
Yes.
for vacancies.
Exactly.
And either one would be excellent choices. I mean, you know, is there, I mean,
I
does the
think,
zoning department have a recommendation?
well, I
that you'd
think
like
what
to
it
make?
is, you know, normally we look at the amount of time that somebody has been on the board, come to the meetings, given their input. Bill is an electrician, very knowledgeable about, you know, construction and things, and asks excellent questions when variances come up and stuff, so, yeah, so I mean, I would certainly, I'm pretty sure that Julie, who's the current chair, would say, and she had asked him whether he wanted to continue, that she would like him reappointed, to another full 5-year term unless he goes ahead and resigns and stuff like that, so, and to keep Kevin as an alternate.
So do I have a motion to, do you guys have a opinion one way or another? Are you good with reappointing Bill?
Yeah, I've met Bill, yeah, he's good.
Would you like to make the motion to appoint him?
Yeah, I'll make the mission for
Okay.
him.
And then this would be resolution 2026-15.
So basically, none of our alternates then can sit on the board
Well, we're meeting again on Tuesdays. Well, that's the question. Do you guys wanna,
until you
since
guys
it's-
appoint them,
since
correct?
this is a new, since the zoning commission, when is the scheduled meeting? The zoning
Well,
commission.
you
is
guys
until-
are meeting on the 6th,
And they're
so
not
the
meeting until the
zoning
13th.
commission is the 13th, so their meeting this month will not change. But the BZA meeting would be on the 20th,
Which
which
may
I think
conflict,
would
yeah.
be your next meeting. So I'm gonna have to call Julie and find out and send stuff out to them to find out when they would, be able to change their meeting on the 20th. Cause normally they're the third Tuesday, you know, maybe they'll just move it to the fourth one or something like that.
Okay.
You
I
know, if
mean,
they wanna keep the same
again,
date.
I'm completely open. I think at this point, you know, my preference, just from a procedural standpoint, would be to do the appointment for the full 5-year term, and then we're gonna meet again before
The BZA.
either the BZA or the zoning commission meets. So we can do the official appointments for the alternate positions at the meeting
On the
next
6th?
Tuesday on the 6th.
Okay, got it.
If, unless you guys,
Yeah, no, that
Different,
makes sense.
Okay,
So I have, a motion by trustee Bilar, for resolution 2026-15 to appoint, William Lister to the 5-year term commencing January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2030 to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Do I have a
I'll second.
Roll call.
Demansky, yes.
Yes.
Paroli, yes.
what time is your next meeting? Is it 7
7
o'clock?
p.m.
7 p.m.
Tuesday the 6th.
All right.
You're right.
Alright, so next on the list is the 2026 holiday schedule, which would be resolution 2026-16. The only modification to what we've done in the past that I was considering that's on there tentatively for your guys' thoughts and discussion is potentially adding Christmas Eve as a recognized holiday. Just so that, and that would be just for the full-time employees, essentially on the service department. And that actually mimics more what we do for the fire department already,
So
because,
we gave up President's Day and Columbus Day, and we do Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve
right.
for holiday pay.
This, and we've done the holiday schedule differently because it applies differently, right? Because like for the fire department, we've done it as like, because it's time and a half, right? Because there aren't any
Right.
full-time employees that get like a paid holiday.
Right.
So this resolution will address it separately like we've done in the past, I think for pay mechanisms. But this would be for like what we recognize as the township, township facilities would be closed barring emergency. So obviously, look, if the roads need plowed and there's a snowstorm, those guys are gonna be out. The difference would be ultimately it's a paid holiday, so they're gonna be on overtime if they're out on Christmas Eve, and then if there's no snow, paid day off. That would be the only change, and I don't know, I mean, just wanna get your thoughts on that.
Okay, on it.
So, let me just, hopefully maybe clarify it a little bit here. Whereas the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees desires to establish a clear and publicly documented schedule of holidays recognized by the township for calendar year 2026, and whereas recognition of holidays affects township operations, payroll administration, scheduling, and public access to township offices, and the board wishes to recognize federal holidays observed nationally and to additionally recognize Christmas Eve Day as a township holiday. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Lafayette Township Trustees, Medina County, Ohio, that the following days are hereby recognized as official township holidays for the calendar year 2026. We have New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, Washington's birthday, President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Eve Day, and Christmas Day. Recognition of a holiday does not require the suspension of essential township services. Department heads may make reasonable operation or staffing adjustments as necessary to ensure continuity of services. And this resolution is intended to establish the township's recognized holiday schedule for the calendar year 2026 and does not by itself create or modify any contract of employment, implementation of holiday pay, or scheduling shall be governed by applicable policies, agreements, and law. Like we were talking about with, time and a half for the fire department. This resolution shall take effect January 1st, 2026 and shall remain in effect through December 31st, 2026. I will make the motion to approve resolution 2026-16 official township holidays.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Demansky, yes.
Yes.
Paroli, yes. Alright. So that kind of gets through a bit more formal. Now, we'll get into, service department staffing. I did speak with, Mr. Lawton this morning. He has put in his notice with his, current employer, and his last day is going to be January 15th. So we discussed his start date. If everybody's in agreement, if he starts on the 17th, 18th, which would be that Sunday. So he obviously won't come in, there won't be a scheduled shift on Sunday. Monday is Martin Luther King Day. So they're off on the federal holiday. And then, so he would start on that Tuesday, which is essentially the 20th. So that's just kind of an update on that, unless anybody has any issues there. And then, we need to talk about, well, I guess before we do that, Ben Miller has been filling in brilliantly for us, is the acting assistant supervisor. He is currently, his current pay rate is $25.20. I know we kind of discussed, some potential advancements, opportunities for him, things that we can do to kind of help support him. He was definitely a strong candidate when we interviewed, for replacements. I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of where you get, like, we normally look at, anywhere from like 3 to 5% pay raises. And I know we had talked about, one of the things that we'd like to see for Ben is to get his Class A CDL. Wanted to get your thoughts on maybe we give him a pay increase and then tie a secondary one to completion of his CDL.
What do we do, go 5%, 5%?
Well, I don't know if it's quite that much. I was thinking, maybe we increase him to 26.25 now. We'll have to do a little bit of legwork. I mean, Carrie, since you're taking over, since you're gonna be the liaison for the service department, maybe you can work on identifying CDL training programs. It's not gonna be as difficult since he does currently have a Class B. The requirements are different, but I do believe he's gonna need to take some sort of educational, like there's a class portion and then a testing portion. My thoughts are, we find a way, we'll have to look at what the cost is, but I would like to see us look at, what that's gonna cost the township and do, like, we'll support that expense. He's obviously doing that to increase his I don't wanna say usefulness, it sounds so bad, but so I'd like to see us, look at what it would cost for his training and for his testing, and for us to do that. That'll obviously take a second approval, but, I guess I was kinda thinking, again, like I said, increases base pay rate effective, the next pay period to 26.25, and then upon completion of the Class A, 27.
I think that's what we were sort of saying before, yeah.
Well, just, like I said, I mean, Ben's been here for about 7 years, he's helped us through a couple of different transition periods. There's definitely some things, that he can work on, from a leadership and a development standpoint, but I think we're all in agreement that we want to do that as a township to help, repay that investment that he's made in us as well. So, I would make the motion to, increase, Ben Miller, his pay rate to $26.25 an hour effective the next pay period. And then, upon successful completion of his Class A CDL, the pay period following that, it'll be an increase to $27 an hour.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Tomansky, yes.
We switched up, yeah, everybody's in favor, okay. Alright. Next agenda item is the zoning department. So I guess the first order of business is discussion of the fact that we are without a zoning inspector. We have a couple of options on how we move forward. The biggest challenge for the zoning department in the interim until we actually name somebody or vest that authority is, we do not have anybody that can legally sign a lot split or a permit application if it were to come in. The prosecutor's office has provided guidance, on what we can do, especially with the way that our zoning code is written. because our zoning code very clearly spells out that that authority will be vested in a zoning inspector, the only person that we could have sign those, would be an interim. We could do a temporary appointment, and it can be anybody except for one of the three of us. So, you know, the question is, how do we wanna go about, like, filling the position? The last two zoning inspectors, the position's been treated very differently, I think it's fair to say. Not just in, like, the people, but like, this past zoning inspector was an hourly position. We paid an hourly rate of $22.50. We kept it to within a 28-hour, you know, we limited, we put a restriction on the hours to keep it as a part-time position. They kind of helped with staffing in the building, right? We coordinated the schedules between the administrative assistant and the zoning inspector. So the zoning inspector ultimately wound up being asked to kind of wear a couple of different hats too. Not necessarily good or bad, but just kind of the way that it was done. Prior to that, the zoning inspector was given a set of responsibilities, things that they needed to get done, and paid a flat monthly rate. And so it was kind of like, you know, do those things, manage the schedule how you want. There were no office hours. There's pros and cons to both, but I think that the board needs to make a decision on kind of how we want to fill that before we can post the position for applicants. I mean, we could post it saying that we would be open to considering both, but I think that'll lead potentially to some confusion. Plus, I think, you know, we kind of need to decide what direction we want to go before we can, you know, hire.
Well, it's gonna also depend on what kind of candidate you get. If you get a candidate who has some experience, then having them go ahead and be more flexible is gonna be beneficial. If you get a candidate who has no experience but is willing to learn, I would think that you're gonna want to monitor and work with and train that person, and have them in the office a little bit more, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, and that brings up a good point too.
What about, you said you do a flat rate if there's one of the options, but I think we have to, I think it would be wise if we put that there has to be some kind of minimum office hours, I think, to just, I mean, would that work, not work? I mean,
Well, we
I-
might want to.
I think that you need to at least have one day. There's just so many
something,
people,
yeah.
90% of the people that stop in are for zoning. And they all wanna know when the zoning inspector is there in the office. So I would suggest it's up to you guys, but at least one day or at least half a day that they know that on Fridays from 8 to 12, the zoning inspector will be there, and that they could go on their lunch hour, or they could go, you know, to drop off their stuff and talk to them and know that they're gonna be there.
Yeah, I think people, if they're putting in for something, they like to talk to people face to face, at least for a few minutes. It just makes them feel better than they just, hey, I dropped this off, but I have no clue what's happening with it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if they drop it off, half the time it's wrong. It's
Right,
short, sure,
yeah,
right.
sure down, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
just doubling the
Until
work
now
by
then,
trying to
what
find
day
it
of
after
the week
that.
has,
Sherry was in on Tuesday,
The
Wednesday,
days
Friday.
that she was there that I wasn't was Tuesdays and Fridays.
Right.
right, but she was there Tuesday, Wednesday.
She was there Tuesday,
She
Wednesday,
was off
Friday.
Thursday, and then she worked Friday, so she was in 3 days.
so you happy with the days that you're at then?
Yeah, I'm fine with my days.
So we would define and have the 2 days again.
If we go with that same approach of
Yeah.
having somebody in the office, you know,
You need to look at too, what do your constituents want? You know, this zoning inspector is serving the constituents of Lafayette Township. If you make them where they have to make appointments, I mean, for some people, that's really good. For other people, it's like, oh gosh, I'm off work, I can run in and do this now. So, you know, you're balancing that, you have to consider that.
Yeah, cause,
well,
and that's the thing too, is I told people, even if it was during her office hours, to make an appointment.
Right.
Well, and ultimately, that's the best way to do it, right? Because we're not always dealing with, 2-minute conversations. Some of the zoning
Exactly.
issues wind up being complex, and so if I think even if there were, the zoning inspectors in, these days for these hours, it still becomes very important to schedule those appointments, in that time. And like I said, I think there's pros and cons to both. You know what I mean? Because again, we do the voucher, the trash voucher program during the summer. And there'll be, the zoning inspector, if it is a set schedule, on the days where Kristen's not there, and it's just the zoning inspector, the zoning inspector may spend half of their hours that they're in the office, or a chunk of their hours, filling out.
Well, we could say you can only pick up your vouchers on the days I'm there,
That's true.
but people will still come in.
People are still gonna come in, and do we really want the zoning inspector being you know what I mean, like?
Yeah, no, I
that's-
mean, they would still give it to them, but it would probably cut down if we just initially said these are the days you can come get your vouchers.
This is where I think it becomes important for a couple of reasons, like, Karen had mentioned too, is, we wanna make sure that we're providing service to the residents and availability, because again, the reason that the roles were kind of set up the way that they were and the hours were set up the way they were, so that the office was open and staffed every day.
Yeah.
So I do think that, part of this conversation ultimately gets into, the next agenda item too, which is the administration, is if we do side with putting somebody in the zoning role, and we wanna do that staff as more of a salaried position, cause if you go that route, we will probably need to get some guidance from the prosecutor's office on what kind of control you can place on that, right? Cause if they're told these are the objectives that, if you're not an hourly employee, you can't then be kinda told when to,
There's no flexibility.
you just have to be careful with some employment law stuff. I'm not saying, I don't know exactly which way, but that's where we wanna get some guidance. But my point being is, if we were to move back to a salaried position, somebody that wanted the flexibility of being able to work from home and kinda set their own schedule, because the tough part is we really can't afford a full-time, or it doesn't make sense for us to have a full-time zoning inspector like some of the larger townships have, but we're not so small that, we can get away with, not providing that.
You
So
almost might wanna go on a case-by-case basis, because if you have a great zoning inspector, but they have a job,
Yeah,
then they can't staff the office, but they're gonna be
Right.
a great zoning inspector.
and then we can always consider backfilling
So
with more
just,
administrative
until
help
you have a
to
candidate, maybe
offset it.
don't put any stipulation on it till you actually
Okay.
find the
That's
person.
what I was wondering.
You know?
I mean, most should be by appointment anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
absolutely.
Open to,
Yeah.
okay, well then, what I'll do is, again, since we're meeting on Thursday, I'll work with
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
you're meeting on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Since we're meeting on Tuesday, I'll work with Karen, and we'll get something put together for like a job listing,
Okay.
outlining what we're looking for as far as like what the responsibilities are,
Mhm.
and then we'll kind of put it as open, and then, again, we can see the type of interest that we get for the position. Back though to, and again, we can make a decision hopefully on Tuesday, but, we should probably do some homework and prep for how we wanna do something in the short term, right? Cause I don't think any of us wanna rush the decision on hiring. Sherry, you got enough on your plate?
Why?
Well, one of the things,
No, I'm not driving the truck.
no, you've already been committed to that, you're the only one, anyway. Well, no, one of the things that came up in the conversation with the prosecutor's office is, we could vest signing authority so that
She could at least do permits.
she could sign the permit. Now, I know that's a big ask, especially since like there's no reason for you to like know our zoning code inside and out. We could potentially, have Karen assist, cause I'm guessing Karen's gonna tell me no.
Why couldn't
to
Karen be
even
the signer since she's the
She
secretary?
could, we could appoint Karen as the temporary zoning inspector, but
I do not wanna be the temporary zoning inspector.
There-
You want me to go ahead and sign something for a permit without the title of a temporary zoning inspector, I'm fine. You know, I can do that, but I don't want to be
So-
caught into that.
and that's what and that's, I guess, kind of why I brought up that potential issue. Now, we could discuss, you know, a process where, since, you know, Karen's definitely knowledgeable enough to
Fill
review
out-
the
I can- and
applications,
fill
make
out
sure
a permit,
everything
right.
is kosher, and kind of give pre-approval, and, you know, just in the interim, I guess we could address it if we don't get a ton of applications.
We have one
this time.
coming up. I've already talked
Alright.
to a gentleman. He's waiting on a deck permit, not that he's gonna be building right now, but he had started this process and would like to go ahead and wrap it up and have his permit. So I will be talking to him probably Monday, to find out. He was gonna come in Tuesday or Thursday to go ahead and get his permit. I'm thinking I'll tell him Thursday, so that it gives you time to decide what you're doing as the intro.
Nobody on the board of zoning appeals or anything, or the board itself, nobody on there?
Well,
can
yeah, I
do-
don't know whether you guys have
Why
reached
can't
out
they,
to,
one of them
to
be
any
the
of
acting
those
zoning
people.
inspector? What are the
We're gonna have-
qualifications on it?
We're gonna have the same issue that we had last time around.
What's
They
that?
have to give up their seat on the zoning inspector can't, like, I
Sit
guess
on the
I should-
board.
Correct, can't sit on either of the boards.
Okay,
An
we'll
alternate.
start with the alternates.
Well, cause they could temporarily.
Yes, because they could temporarily be the temporary
So
zoning.
we'll have that, I'll take lead on that, we'll have that conversation, and hopefully I can present something to the board on Tuesday.
Okay,
Um,
but you know
For-
what,
for an interim.
don't discount either the people who are on the boards. I mean, because if you guys are gonna fill the position, it would be they would temporarily resign their position, you would leave it open, not fill it with another person, okay?
Yeah,
And
we
they
could.
would temporarily cover until you get somebody hired.
We could do that, that's
You
that's
know?
definitely a possibility, and I don't think it's probably not the cleanest way to do it if we can find another one, but it is definitely an option, and you know, we may even get interest from
Right, if you
somebody
haven't
on one of the
talked,
boards
right.
full-time, so I think the desire, at least on my part, is to, whatever the interim solution is truly interim only, so that we're
Right.
not doing this whole, well, interim to maybe permanent, to
To
maybe
maybe
not, to, it just too much
Yeah,
indecisiveness, but, I will try to come to, the meeting on Tuesday with a more definitive proposal on that.
Since it's just an interim position anyway, we'd be able to go to another township and use a zoning inspector to sign things, since we don't get that many anyway.
Ooh,
Could potentially,
Chippewa,
good idea.
Chippewa zoning inspector, it's actually still township per se. Turns out.
the,
Chippewa news.
They're not, but I mean, they're in their village, but they would be, you know, they would just need to be familiar with our regs, cause their regs are different than ours,
right,
yeah.
but they are familiar enough with the role to
Of
know
being
how
a
to kind
zoning
of
inspector,
follow the process
exactly.
and stuff like that. We can definitely do that, cause there are no residency restrictions or anything along those
Okay.
lines, I mean, it can be open to anybody. The other thing to consider, Karen, I know we had set kind of limits on your hours.
Right.
You've been kind of, like, how comfortable are you with the workload that you've got currently?
Well, it's nice
Disappointed.
because when I don't have meeting minutes, I don't really have to come in, but.
Sure.
But if you need more help, like, you know, I can cover Kristen or I can cover the, you know, if you need me to come in when they're doing the trash things and come in more to staff during there, I would be fine with that.
Okay. And we've currently, got, I think we've got you, what, 20, I think we only did 22
21.
or 21 hours? Or no, I'm sorry, the hours.
Oh, the hour?
8, maybe?
Did we go to 28 last year, hopefully?
No, No,
I didn't
no,
think
no, I have it written on my thing, it's only 21.
No, the number
Your
of hours
Karen.
that you're allowed to work per week. Did we do 21 on that as well?
Oh, no, it's not, it's per pay. It's per pay, and it was 20-some hours per pay.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, I
21
thought it was
hours per
pretty
pay.
low. It was pretty
Yeah.
low, and I think especially in the interim, we might want to look at
Yeah.
at doing that, especially since now that she's luckily retired and has more time that we can take advantage of that. You guys, I mean, I would say we should at least authorize 25 a week. I know you're not gonna put that many in, or you'll
I'm
probably
not.
strike, right? But I'm just saying, like, at least so that in a short-term emergency, if we need more, I don't want you to be restricted. We're gonna rope her into being the zoning
Yeah.
inspector at some point.
I don't think so.
But, yeah.
How about if we do 20 a week?
20 a week?
20 a week would be the max I would wanna do. I like to be able to be flexible. Yeah, I gotta go to lunch with the girls and stuff, so, priorities.
Do you see Blackberry Smoke concerts,
Yeah,
important stuff.
February. For sure.
Well, I would make the motion to approve Karen Schoonover, zoning secretary, $22 an hour, 20 hours a week.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then we will work on getting a listing to get together for the board to review at the next meeting. Administration. I know Kristen has been filling a lot of roles. Sherry, are we gonna, you still wanna
Mhm.
keep Kristen as your assistant as well, correct?
Yes.
Are you struggling on the 28 hours though?
No,
You want more?
sure.
Um,
I think I'm up to 32 as approved.
If you cross, yeah.
But
That's-
just know that, I think in the handbook, 36 is full-time.
Right. Well, yeah, if you're
So
over
whatever you
that
guys wanna do with
consistently.
that.
Why, are you looking for a full-time gig?
I mean, I would be fine with it.
Well, I think that's probably a discussion that we would need to have a little bit bigger. Chief, do you wanna have an executive session to discuss some of the personnel stuff for the fire department?
If you would like, sure.
The
I
compensation.
mean, I
Alright.
don't really have anything,
Well, I think you had submitted a couple of things to us in writing.
yeah, recently, right?
I'd like to do a short one, if everybody's okay, and then we can kind of touch back on the administration as well. But I would make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 121.22 G1 employment compensation.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Well, actually, roll call. We need to roll on
Demonski, yes.
Yes.
Parole, yes. So we're gonna enter executive session at 2:33. In will be trustees Parole, Villar, Demonski, and Chief Kavanaugh.
Who seconded? Gary
Huh?
seconded.
Steve seconded.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we back up to zoning?
Okay.
Is the position for zoning inspector certified? Does that person have to be certified?
No.
Are you interested?
I have to talk to the warden.
Oh, fiscal officer Sherry Ward will be joining us too. Yeah, come on.
Very few, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we go.
That's nice. Yeah, we have a few rabbits. Oh, my dog takes a lot to it.
one for Tuesday. Alright, it is 2:59, we are out of executive session. Oh, good. Alright, we are out of executive session, no decisions were made. We will reconvene the conversation, with administration. For the time being, I would make the motion to, increase the pay rate for our administrative assistant, Kristen Raleigh, to $22 an hour, up to 35 hours per week. But I do think that there's an opportunity to maybe explore something more moving forward. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Alright. And then on to fire districts. Obviously, Chief Kavanaugh is under contract, through July of '27. So that's,
Yes.
26 or 27?
Well, no, 27 is
yeah,
my
his contract
yeah.
was renewed
Oh.
through next summer.
It says
Um,
2,600 people.
Well, that's,
Oh, no, that's just.
that's
for
his
this
current pay
year's
rate until
period.
July. There's a bump in his contract.
Oh, I see.
And then we have the assistant chief position. Currently, Tim Holzman is the assistant chief, at an annual salary of $32,500. I would make a motion to approve an increase in the assistant chief's salary, 3% to $33,475, effective the next pay period. We got a second from trustee Bilar, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Then we are looking at the pay rates. Currently, we do pay rates based on certification for all the members of our fire department. Currently, the captain, $26 an hour, lieutenant's $25 an hour, lieutenant engineer, $21.50, firefighter 2, paramedic 22, firefighter 2 EMT, $19.50, firefighter 1 medic is $21.50, volunteer firefighter medic $21.50, medic 19, EMT 16.50, firefighter 2 16.50, firefighter 1 EMT 16.50, and the safety officer gets a $2 increase based on their current certification. I would like to make a motion to increase all of those pay rates by 3%, which would be $26.78, $25.75, $22.15, $22.66, $20.09, $22.15, $22.15, $19.57, $17.17, $17, and the same $2 an hour for the safety officer. We will submit this with the minutes so that there's a record of it. But again, I would make the motion to increase the pay rates for all of our members of the fire department as discussed, effective the next pay period.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The other item that we discussed, to help supplement the leadership structure within the fire department, I would like to consider granting chief, what was the title you would want?
Acting officer.
Acting
or-
officer.
Yeah.
To authorize chief to designate 3 members of the department as an acting officer, up to 3 people per pay period, which would give them $1 an hour increase to what their current pay rates are. And that would be, chief's discretion to help supplement his leadership structure within the department. And again, I would make the motion for that to be effective next pay period.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The next item that we have is the holidays. As we discussed earlier, for the fire department, time and a half pay rates for all hourly employees for New Year's Day, MLK Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve for 2026. I would make a motion to approve time and a half pay rates for all of those holidays.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nobody. So we have continuing current benefits, life and disability insurance, VIFS, volunteer fireman's dependent fund, and OPM, PNF pension fund. I would make a motion to approve benefits for life disability insurance, VIFS, volunteer firemen's dependent fund, and OPNF fund.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have the appointments for the 2026 firefighters dependent fund. I would make the motion to appoint trustee Bilar and Demonsky to the legislative authority and trustee Paroli as the chairperson. Make the motion to approve the firefighter dependent fund committee.
I'll approve. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chief, was there anything else we need to cover with fire for the organizational meeting?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. We did have one other item that I wanna cover. We have 3 other items listed under new business. Only one I think we should address, for today. We did, obviously talk about the staffing, for the service department. As it stands right now, Ben Miller is the only member of our department. Chief has, allowed us access to, 3 members of the fire department to help supplement that. They've been doing a great job. Also in the interim, trustee, Bonner from Chatham reached out to me about, and I had sent you guys a copy of, a proposed shared work agreement with Chatham, just to kind of have as a backup, kind of a backup to the backup. We're gonna meet again before they meet, so, you know, if I could just ask you guys, again, review that, get familiar with that, make sure you're comfortable with it, and we'll take a look at approving it at the next meeting. Trustee Bilar, you had mentioned, you know, the 2 items that you put on, you're okay with tabling those, or, you know, putting them off till the, alright. So I've got nothing else unless you guys have anything. Sherry, are you good?
Okay.
Alright, then is there a motion to adjourn? Trustee Bilar, motion to adjourn. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. 3:07. Hang on for a minute, guys. I will get the resolutions.
Here's 3 of them. There you go.
Might need a key for that door, I gotta unlock.
I got mine.
Oh.
Carrie, you might try hot, honey.
That's what I really think.
Honey, okay.
And Colby wanna try some
Carrie.
blackberry brandy, about 10 seconds in the microwave. No, I'm gonna. Do you not wanna be?
Drink it
Oh, my
out of
clothes.
my